Hey guys, so in today's video we're going to be addressing a couple of issues that I've seen with the Ender 3 V2, and this has to do with the routing of the bed and hot end assembly cables. As you can see, they come out from the bottom of the unit, right out of the motherboard and power supply. But what happens is, if you notice this cable here, this is the bed cable, it's right up against this plug, and as the bed moves back and forth, what you'll notice is the cable will rub up against this plug. And during a long print, you'll start to notice that this hanging that it does here, and not so much with this little cable, because this little cable is just something that I added for the camera. I'm talking about this cable here. So this one will just ever so slightly rub up against that little bump, and this will turn up in the prints. So you'll notice in the print it has a little wavy line, and it's always in the same spot. As the bed moves forward and back, it creates this little bump here. So I wanted to address that. Another reason that I need to do something different with these cables is I want to build an enclosure for one of the printers so that I can work with filaments like polycarbonate and nylon. And what I don't like about putting the entire printer inside of an enclosure is that the power supply and the motherboard are going to be exposed to those hotter temperatures, and I'm not too happy about that. So I think the right thing to do would be to create an enclosure for the printer that has an open bottom. That way the bottom is isolated from the rest of the printer. The rest of the printer can be at whatever temperature it needs to be at for the material that we're printing with, but the power supply and motherboard can still stay cool. Let's take one of the printers apart and we'll see what we can do to modify the routing of these cables. Alright guys, so the plan here is to cut out this section. So this is about 31 millimeters. So I'll put this thing down here. So it's about 31 millimeters wide, and I need it to be 14 millimeters tall. And the idea is to use a grommet. Grab the grommet. To use this grommet. And what I want to do with this grommet is I want to squeeze it down into this shape, because I'm going to pass the cables that come from the motherboard to the stepper motors through this opening instead of underneath. So right now the way they're routed is they're routed underneath the power supply. So the power supply sits in here and these are routed under it. But I want to build an enclosure for the printer, and I need to reroute these a different way. So I'm going to go inside the power supply, up and out the top. Hopefully that'll work. Alright guys, so what I'm using here is just a unibit, it's a step bit, and I have to open the hole all the way. So this is about a ½ inch or just about 12 millimeters. So what I'm going to do is, this is the widest mark that I want to go to. So I'm about halfway between this mark and the center mark. That's where I'm going to drill a hole. Alright, so it's nighttime here at my house, so I'm going to go take this outside, drill these out, and then I'll come right back. Okay, so this is where we're at right now. And then I'm going to step it 2 sizes bigger than this, using the next size step bit. Alright, so now these holes are about 14 millimeters each. Lastly, I'm going to use my jigsaw with a bimetal cutting blade Make sure that you protect the metal by taping the base plate of the jigsaw. And again, I'm just going to take this outside real quick, cut along these two lines. Now that we got the hole cut, all we got to do now is just put our grommet in. That's it. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to fish the wires up through here. I'm going to go ahead and reassemble this. And then there's a couple of screws on the other side that you got to take off. So the heater bed cable tucks perfectly behind the power supply, so there's like a little gap behind it. So I'm just gonna push it back in there, and then I'll do the same with this. It's gonna be right underneath, right along here. So what I'm doing now is just trying to fit everything back together. And if you notice, the back of the board is labeled, so it's got all the labels for all the cables here. So if you pull everything off and you don't remember where everything goes, you can just refer to these labels here. That way you can get everything plugged into the correct place. Here's another thing. So the back of the board doesn't specify, well, I guess on the heater it doesn't matter. The polarity doesn't matter, neither does on the bed. Um, but if, for example, it wasn't labeled, you can look at the other connectors. For example, the fan here, they're using the square. So it's got like a little square shaped place for the wire, and it's soldered. So the square one is the positive, the round one is the negative. So positive, negative, positive. Positive is a square, negative is a circle. Okay, the next one is the heater element will be here. Okay, so now this is the limit switch, or I'm sorry, the temp probe for the bed. So that's going to be temperature heater, or temperature hot end, temperature bed. So it'll be right here. What I think I'm going to do is I think I'm going to mount this thing. All right, guys. So what I did to get the clearance here for the for this cables to come through is I turned this plug around. So I used to have these three connectors over on this side, which would have interfered with this. So I just turned this thing around to give me the clearance to bring the wires in through here. And that's pretty much it. Last thing I'm gonna do is I need to redesign one of my parts. So I had made this little thing for to connect the fan so that I can remove moisture from the filament. So it's essentially a filament dryer, and the idea it was going to go here, but I need to redesign this little box here, and it plugs in. We got the positive on this side and the negative on this side. So I'll show you guys how that works as soon as I'm done. But anyway, this is pretty much done. Last thing would be to put the cover back on. And that's it. So this is the completed job once we reassembled the power supply cover. And as you can see now, there's no interference with the power cord. And then the other thing is we've eliminated the cables from the bottom here. So when I make my enclosure, I don't have to worry about working around these cables. And let me get you guys close so you can see. So all we did is squish that grommet, put it inside the power supply cover, and rerouted the cables from underneath to next to the power supply. So this cover here, this black cover, is not actually the power supply cover, but the cover that holds that encases the power supply. And there's plenty of room right below this to run these cables. So if you're looking at this, if you can imagine, right under here, so the power supply ends right about here, and then you have all the terminals. So here are all the terminals for the power supply. So these cables run underneath those terminals. And anyway, I think it's perfect like this. It's not going to hang up or anything. Another thing that I also did is I relocated the spool holder. I had it mounted sticking out to the side, but I decided to turn it back. That simplifies designing an enclosure for it. Guys, if you like the content I'm putting out, make sure to subscribe to the channel. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up, share, and comment. I love the comments and do my best to get back to you guys as soon as possible. Till next time, God bless.